Good day or good evening or good night, wherever and whenever you are. It's a wet and windy day for me here, but for the game it is May the 15th in 1940. As a follow-on from my coverage of Scenario 2 of the TCS Leros game, I've chosen to move on to the game of GD40 in the same series. I still have my mind on the Leros game and thinking about ways to handle attack and defense of the island, but because that was my first proper TCS game, I felt I wanted to get further into the system, particularly using the operations sheets with GD40, because it's only a one map game, but it can cover a whole day, so there's or even 2 days, I believe, so there's opportunity for preparing up, coming in with implemented op sheets, preparing op sheets, and accruing weighted turns, so trying to respond to the events of the battle with your op sheets. Plus, I'm interested in this because it has tanks, so I can see how that other arm will combine with the artillery and the infantry, which we have in the Leros game. So GD40 is about the village of Ston here, which is on these heights, surrounded by very wooded terrain, some clear areas, of course. And it starts off in French hands, but we have masses of Germans on their way. There's a German tank force here. You've got an infantry column here. You've got infantry here, plus, let's see if I can zoom in. Okay, infantry, and you've got some Stugs, and then you've got lots of trucks and a couple of half tracks with many anti-tank guns. So there's a whole, there's a lot of, I don't know if it's battalion or regiment anti-tank companies there. And then there's some infantry here, 2 or 3 infantry companies there. So let me zoom out again so you can see the map. So this is the overall situation. My orange markers here are indicating likely points where these tanks can arrive on the first turn. I've chosen to start with the first scenario, which is 16 turns long, so it starts at 4 in the morning, ends at 9 in the morning, just as the main French reinforcements are about to come on. So you only get one recon unit of French reinforcements coming on here, but they have to have orders to hold and protect this entry area. So I don't know if one could include them in a quick counterattack as part of their defence of that area or not. Otherwise, the French just have these initial forces, which isn't very much for them. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tanks, and I'm still playing with setups. So I'm thinking of some tanks here, in the hope that these ones they'll be able to catch the German tanks in crossfires, because the Germans have a mix of Mark 1s, Mark 2s and Mark 3s. The Mark 3s are more powerful than the French tanks, but the French tanks outgun and sort of have equal or better defence protection than the Mark 1s and 2s. So really the French want some kind of like advantage. The Germans have more numerous tanks, so the French are looking for a crossfire advantage if possible to match up with the tank force they're facing. Then we've got 2 reduced battalions defending in and around Ston. I've put there's a single mortar, 81mm mortar, and that's 2 machine gun sections. And then over here we've got 2 companies which are basically poised with machine gun sections, basically poised to move around to try and attack the rear area of there, which is full of trucks and, as I said, the anti-tank guns. So that those ones over there are organised as a disruptive force. Originally I was thinking of having more of a blocking force here, so these ones here as a blocking force, along with these machine gun sections here. So the thought is to kind of try and disrupt, well, originally I thought try and block this and this, allow that one through for the defenders to take care of, and the tanks to try and gather those up in a crossfire and sort of duel with them. But now I've moved the blocking force from here up here because I can redo. The French have to set up first, and they write their op sheets before the Germans set up. So we know the French know the Germans set up areas, but not their actual dispositions. So the Germans and the French have to set up below this line, or else they have to be within stun. So the point here is that these Germans could move, but my idea is that these are going to pin this group while they move around there. But of course, hopefully these Germans won't know those ones are going there, and so they'll try and defend. They'll be under defensive orders and not be able to do much against them. They might obviously just counterattack. We don't know yet. So that's my rough plan. Yes, these blue points are where. That was setup error. So setup. They had to set up back from there, and this is where that column can be on turn 1. At the end of turn 1, so you can see they've got 16 turns, and on turn 1 the Germans can already be here, so it's going to get fast and furious quite quickly. Now let's take a look at the ops sheets. Okay, sorry about the angle, I've got a bit of a drunken camera, but anyway, I said ops sheets, but that's not actually correct, because I haven't got as far as the ops sheets yet. I'm still in the planning stage for the ops sheets, but this gives us a graphic of the situation. This is the setup area for the tanks, and so I couldn't set up the tanks as I have them on the board there. That was just, again, my planning. They could be there. In fact, they could be here on turn 1, at the end of turn 1. So a lot depends on who gets the initiative, especially on turn 1. But so the tanks and a lot of the infantry set up here. And then this is another company, separate battalion, sorry. They can set up anywhere below, south of this green line. So we got the 1st and 2nd reduced battalions here, and the 4 BCC tanks, and then we've got the 3rd battalion, which is full strength, could set up here. So just to say, this was my initial thoughts. We got some here. Then, as you saw, you got machine guns, essentially to try and prevent a flanking movement. You can't see very well here. You cannot, if you download these off the Gamers Archive support site on Multiman Publishing, you can see these are words leading up to Ston, but this is a big open area. So if someone tries to flank around here, the machine guns positioned here will stop them. It could also interdict into these hexes, that this wood line sort of 1 hex long, as people using that cover, because the woods are going to be very important, because both sides have a fair bit of artillery. So people aren't going to off-board artillery. People aren't going to want to move in the open so much. So that's to protect that flank a bit. Then originally I thought I had to set some, like 2 machine gun sections, because again there's some open area here. If they came straight, Germans came straight down this road, there's one that was positioned to shoot them up all along that road, and then the other one is to block here, because obviously the infantry are probably going to come through the woods. Quite light woods apparently, but so the trucks and that could come through, but obviously it would be a lot slower. And then there was going to be a blocking force here, which was just on the rise here, for the woods down below, and then that disruptive force heading for the rear area there. But now I've moved these up to here, and one of those sections in support are my current thoughts. So this, sorry, just trying to, it's difficult to hold my, okay, so we're looking at the overall situation, and so these are the German setup areas, the limits of their setup area, and then these are the French thoughts of their likely lines of advance. So this is straight down the road, this is through that road, and perhaps also obviously through, should be a broader line of advance thinking there. This fairly broad line of advance is thought there for perhaps an attempted flanking move around here. And then these, it's all possibilities that they might come here, they might come here, and they might come here, for flanking, cutting off manoeuvres, because that is a very mobile force. Here is nice because they would be moving under cover of woods on most of their advance. These approaches would be very dangerous, vulnerable to artillery attack. So that was how I've been planning it. Yes, so we have the recon battalion entering here at 0600, which is after 6 turns of play. So then there would be 10 more turns for them to play in. This German unit we know is going to move off this way at I can't remember now. It's maybe 10 o'clock something, but anyway, the German tanks have to withdraw after a while, but I believe they have something like 10 turns. So you see, they could attack and take Ston in that time, but then they would have to withdraw, which might mean these ones, the recon unit, would be quite useful without lots of tanks around. It might be able to help with any potential counter attack on Ston. So we know that because for plausible belief, I'm saying, okay, we know that there's a major French attack or diversion going on there, so we're expecting them to get drawn us off, so we can factor them in our plans. But we know these are going to be hanging around. Now, this is the first scenario of GD40. It can be just the start of the whole campaign scenario, which is, I think, is the way I'm going to take it. But I'm still considering my present op sheets in relation to the victory conditions and the orders for this scenario.